would welcome you to this panel. Following the opening statement by Minister Karamanlis, we're now coming, and Minister Georgiadis earlier this morning, we're coming to the panel that will talk about transforming Greece through large privatization infrastructure projects. So I will we have a top-level group of panelists. I will turn it over to Jay Collins from Citi to take over and introduce the panelists and guide the discussion. So Jay, I welcome the minister and I welcome all of you, Penelope, John, Steve, Athanassios, and Riccardo. And Jay, please take over.
Great, thank you. If I could just ask though all the panelists to put their phones on mute because there is a little bit of an echo there. That would be great. So first of all, I'd just like to thank everyone for joining us today. We have a fantastic group of experts in privatization and infrastructure. There is still a little bit of an echo, so again, I'd ask everybody to mute, please. Thank you. Let me just start by saying we have with us alternate Minister of Finance for Fiscal Policy of the Hellenic Republic, Theodoros Skylakakis. So thank you, Minister, for joining us. We also have Riccardo Lambiris, which is a great pleasure, CEO of the Hellenic Republic Asset Development Fund. Good to see you. We have Penelope Lazaridou, the General Finance Manager for the Executive Board of GK TERNA group of companies. And of course, Athanassios Vlachopoulos, who is the General Manager of Corporate and Investment Banking for Piraeus Bank. Thank you. And then, of course, John Charalambakis, who's with us as the Managing Director of BlackSummit Financial Group. And last but not least, Steve Demetriou, Chairman and CEO of Jacobs Engineering. All experts in this field of privatizations and infrastructure. We're going to go around and see if we can make this interactive. I'm going to start by asking one round of questions of all the panelists, and then we'll do our best to get around to a second round of questions. But let me just start, Minister, with you, if I may. And so much on everyone's mind is this massive EU recovery fund, and it represents such an opportunity for Greece. It has the potential to impact a variety of sectors, including infrastructure. And we'd love to hear from you, since you're right in the middle of this massive effort, on your thoughts on both the recovery fund and the government's priorities to use it.
Well, let's please, someone is interfering, so all put mute. Yes, that's nice. So let me start by saying that this is indeed a unique challenge for Greece, because we had to face a second major economic recession a few years after exiting a very prolonged and painful recession due to the Greek crisis of 2010, 2016, 17, depending on how you measure it. And after this period, this fund is extremely important because it gives us the opportunity to invest, but also to reform. This is a fund that has reforms and investments coupled, and this is very important. And we have already given a draft plan to the European Commission, among the first countries that did that, and it's quite a mature and integrated and complete plan, as the Commission is saying. And what we try to do is to facilitate a paradigm shift in the Greek economy towards a more extrovert, competitive and green economic model with a more efficient, less bureaucratic and more digitalized state, a much reduced gray sector of the economy. Greece has a big problem in terms of the gray sector of the economy, and a more growth-friendly tax system and a more resilient social safety network. Now, this is not just an economic transition. We aim at a more fundamental economic and social transition that will affect also technologies, attitudes, and institutions. And we want to combine economic efficiency with social inclusion and justice. Now, the Greek plan aims to be fully compliant with EU goals for an accelerated climate and digital transition. Already, we have a very ambitious plan of getting out of the of coal, of lignite in Greece very early, and also cover the country-specific recommendations and what we call the Piraeus report, which is also an ambitious reform agenda. Now, what are the main efforts of the plan? We have to cover the huge investment, output, and employment gap, which is endemic to the performance of the Greek economy over the last decade, and which has deteriorated due to the current pandemic. And for that purpose, we will use these funds to mobilize at least 45 to 50 billion euros that will enter the Greek economy as investments in capital or labor within the next 5 to 5.5, 6 years. How do we intend to do that? We have proposed to the Commission to use the loans that we have, which are possibly up to 13 billion, to incentivize private investment. We will use extensively PPPs, private and public partnerships, and also the relevant structure in the energy efficiency programs, private sector there as well. And at the same time, we will give big emphasis to public investments that create a lot of economic value in terms of mobilizing themselves additional economic resources. So I won't go into the details on what kinds of investments we have, because we are talking about, at this moment, close to 200 investments and 60 reforms that we are discussing with the Commission. Now the reforms will be as many, the investments will be a bit less, because we always do some overbooking when we do this discussion to be able to finally end with the most important and economically resilient investments, both public and private. But this is a first overview.
Great, thank you, Minister. We'll come back to you in a minute. Let me move to Riccardo for a second. HRADF's got just an exciting agenda moving forward. You've got both the landmark privatization of Theodoros coming up. You've got the completion of Hellenic, which is one of the crown jewels of the privatization effort ongoing. Tell us a little bit about how COVID has affected the privatization program, Riccardo, and how you see that moving forward. Riccardo, I think you may be on mute. Yes, you're still on mute, Riccardo. just give Riccardo 1 second to come off mute again. And I don't know if Nicholas, if we have him on mute or if it's his speaker. You know what, maybe just in the interest of time while Riccardo's working out that little technical glitch there, Penelope, if I can move on to you, that'd be great. Because I know you've been also focused on taking advantage of the business opportunities and investments, including concessions and infrastructure space, despite the challenges of the COVID epidemic. Tell us a little bit about your contribution and role in this space, given the challenges of the pandemic and how you see the current opportunities.
Thank you. I would like to thank Capital, Nicholas, and you and all the panelists. As you probably know, at TERNA Group, we're strategically positioned in the concession and infrastructure sectors for many years, which appear to be more resilient during economic downturns. And today, currently, we participate in almost all Greek concession projects that are currently in progress or are at a mature tender phase, the total value of which exceeds 3.5 billion approximately. These projects comprise the well-known Castelli Airport, which is the second largest airport in Greece, the landmark entertainment and MICE project at Hellenic, new large-scale motorway project and other existing motorway extension as well. On top of that, a private finance initiative of the group is currently under review. This regards to a gas power plant in Komotini of circa 350 million project. Now, moreover, the aim, I would say, with the assistance of the EU is to accelerate the completion of the tender process and to finance, of course, the exact methods is to be decided, additional concession infrastructure projects which are at various stages of bidding process the last few years, totaling circa 6 billion in value. Indicatively, I would like to mention the Northern Road Axis of Crete, the Salamina submerged tunnel, for which TERNA is already a pre-qualified bidder, the underground gas storage facility in Kavala, as well as a large group of several PPP projects, all via viability payment. And those projects will create top value and with high quality services. Most of the projects I've mentioned are additional potential opportunities for us. It needs to be mentioned also that based on international experience, for every €1 that the national or European budget allocates to infrastructure projects, at least €2 are produced as added value to our economy and are added to our country's GDP. Of course, boosting employment, boosting consumption, but also boosting all the prices of all asset classes. This multiplier is one of the highest that you can find in investment, and I would say that can only be compared to those of investments in innovation, biotechnology, and of course, the renewable energy sources projects. So therefore, a strong investment narrative in infrastructure will not only assist in the recovery of the Greek economy amid also this COVID-19 pandemic, but will enhance growth in other sectors of the Greek economy for years to come. Of course, what is important, and I would like to mention, is that TERNA Group has the specialization, has the resources, has the experience, has the competitive advantage, the solid also financial standing, and especially the internal strength to claim major infrastructure projects and concessions that are going to be tendered in the Greek market and selectively international market in the near future. On top of that, we shouldn't forget that the almost 60-year experience and the proven track record of our construction arm, TERNA, of the group, in numerous highly demanding and complex projects, both in Greece and also abroad, is a very strong and reliable, I would say, guarantee for the successful and timely completion of any project that our group, I mean, TERNA Group, will undertake. Jay, the floor is yours again.
Take myself, perfect, thank you. Just taking myself off mute there. And speaking of which, Riccardo, let's just see if you're able to get yourself off mute at this point and tell us a little bit again on HRADF's privatization plans. There we go. Over to you, Riccardo. No, interesting. I see that you've come off mute. We still don't hear you. Athanassios, so why don't we go to you if that's okay? And clearly, with how well the banks have done through the crisis in Greece, would love to hear your perspective on not just how you think, but how Greek banks are thinking about financing for this the infrastructure projects going forward in the country, what you're seeing differently this time around in terms of Greek banks' appetite for infrastructure concessions and to be part of the funding solutions.
Thank you, Jay, for your question. And I would like to start with a big thank you to Nikos Bernozis for the invitation. And I have a great pass because speaking after the minister and Penelope, there are a lot of things to discuss regarding the projects that will revive the Greek economy. However, let me start by remind ourselves that the Greek banking system managed to navigate successfully through strong headwinds the last 10 years, with GDP contraction of more than 25% and a huge NPE stock. Greek banks emerged in a series of actions, not just to ensure viability, but also to assist the Greek economy. Today, with a light of optimism for a gradual return to normality, thanks to the vaccines that sooner or later will be available, and the coordinated European decisions to foster and facilitate recovery, now it seems that there is a time to re-engage the discussion for Greece growth momentum, with the main pathways being the following three. The first one is the infrastructure and privatization investments. The second one are the tools that the European Union made available for all European countries, and I'm referring specifically to the Just Transition Time, the Just Transition Mechanism, and the Recovery Resilience Fund. And third, probably the most important in terms of significant in signaling, is actually the FDI, the Foreign Direct Investment, especially with the recently announced investments from Pfizer and Microsoft in Greece. So having a strong track record, Piraeus Bank having a strong track record, especially on the infrastructure, since the bank is not only the biggest lender, the largest lender in Greece, but is also the largest lender in concession and in airport financing. At this point, I would like to highlight that the bank, Piraeus Bank, is also the biggest lender in the renewable energy sources, maintaining a percentage of 28% on the installed capacity. So the bank has proved its experience, capacity, and capability on the financing. Going forward, I think that all Greek banks are committed to further support on the revival of the Greek economy, and especially for Piraeus Bank, we're committed to finance any single project that is infrastructure or privatization, and especially infrastructure projects that are meeting ESG criteria.
Great, thank you. John, I think it's be fascinating to hear a little bit of your perspective from BlackSummit, how statecraft fits into all of this, particularly the Greek privatizations, and how do you see it in particular with the role that you've played thus far?
Sure, thank you. And thanks to Capital Link for organizing this significant opportunity to discuss infrastructure and privatizations in Greece. If I could maybe change the word statecraft to geostrategic initiatives and include statecraft under the geostrategic initiatives. And I would say every country that desires to grow needs to be looking at 4 fundamental issues related to geostrategic initiatives. Number 1 is national security. So when we privatize a project, how does it fit and how does it advance national security issues? So we can say that's a geopolitical issue. Second, how does the privatization and the infrastructure project fit into the geoeconomic, the statecraft issues? Does it advance our commitments to our allies, and does it advance our economic goals, including, of course, the European goals? Number 3, how does it secure our energy interest? So energy security. And number 4, how does it advance our national defense? So when we consider a privatization project, I think it's vital to consider those 4 elements: geoeconomic, statecraft that you mentioned, geopolitical, energy security, and national defense. So let me give you maybe a dimension of the Alexandroupolis and Kavala port, where BlackSummit, along with TERNA, participate. So we consider that the Alexandroupolis and the Kavala port are vital for national security interest for Greece, Europe, and the West. Number 2, we consider both ports as being vital in advancing economic interest, and I will give you specific examples how regional development and growth can take place through this privatization. And number 3, both ports are vital for energy security issues. So let me be specific how those ports can advance economic growth and statecraft. Let's assume that we take a country in the Middle East. Let's say it's Saudi Arabia. 75% of the grains that go to Saudi Arabia come from the Black Sea area. So let's assume that they load a vessel with grains in Odessa. It takes approximately 2 or 3 days to cross the Black Sea. It takes at least 2 days to wait in Bosporus, to cross the Bosporus, then a day to cross the Sea of Marmara, and finally reach the Aegean. All this cost approximately $150,000 to $170,000. Now, what's the alternative? Bypass Bosporus. How do you bypass Bosporus? You load in Odessa, and in a day you reach Varna. In 8 hours, you load the train, and in 8 hours, it's in Alexandroupolis. What's the total savings? Approximately $110,000. What can you do with an extra $110,000? I don't know, maybe buy popcorn. So by passing Bosporus and giving you this example of how geoeconomically and geostrategically those 2 privatizations can advance not just the national interests of Greece, because there are military dimensions, as we all understand, into that. But also give more employment, higher income, higher tax base, all of which contribute even to even better educational levels in the economy, because money flows. And Mrs. Penelope Lazaridou very strongly emphasized the multiplier. The multiplier of 2 eventually will create economic growth, jobs, income, and profits for local businesses.
Great, thank you. Okay, Steve, tell us a little bit about how engineering fits into the infrastructure space, and what exactly, from Jacobs Engineering Group's perspective, is required in the engineering space to make all of these infrastructure projects successful.
Yeah, thanks, Jay. And to all my Greek colleagues, Galimera, Galispera, Efkaristo για την πρόσκληση. Look, Jacobs, we're a global leader in providing innovative solutions to some of the world's most critical problems, and we've been talking about some of them today. And we support government, commercial clients, and solutions that lead to thriving cities, resilient environments, mission-critical outcomes, scientific discovery, and cutting-edge manufacturing. These are the capabilities that can be leveraged to support Greece's infrastructure and economic development aspirations that we're discussing. We provide end-to-end expertise in this area, in the area of consulting, engineering, technology, across a wide spectrum of markets that include water, environmental, transportation, life sciences, and electronics. We have unique combination of decades of domain expertise in these markets around digital, cyber, and 5G solutions. We're also a leader in sustainability. In response to the growing pressure on climate change, we launched our own company, net zero carbon objectives, and achieved that this year. And we're also helping our global clients integrate their sustainable low carbon solutions into their operations to maximize societal, environmental, and economic climate change and benefits. We have a talented global workforce of 55,000 employees, including more than 14,000 professionals in the UK and Europe. More than 250 of them are Greeks, and we're forming a strong bond between Jacobs and Greece. And our legacy projects in Greece include the defense work in Suda Bay and Crete, lenders, technical advisor, and independent engineer for P3 concessions such as Attiki Odos and Moreas Highway. And we've also partnered with several Greek firms to advance projects internationally. So we're committed to investing in Greek talent. We're ready to support Greece achieve their goals. We're a trusted partner in the Southeast region and Balkans in particular. And we need to enhance Greece's regional leadership in integrating transport infrastructure such as roads, rails, ports, maritime, and air, gas and power interconnections, modernization, expansion, digitization of the network infrastructure. All of this, must be done as soon as possible. And as it relates to, as it relates to, what is it going to take to invest? For companies like ourselves to invest, I think there's really 3 things that are paramount for infrastructure players like Jacobs to invest. First, it's a business-friendly structure that includes streamlined and transparent tender and regulatory processes. Stability, especially in the banking sector, for access to financing and funding, and also tax stability and incentives to attract investment. But secondly is really a culture of innovation, especially in the areas of digital technology, climate adaptation, green economy initiatives. These can all create strong, sustainable growth for Greece. And if backed up by a focused plan to gain momentum in these areas, they'll create an environment that facilitates a large increased pipeline of attractive projects that drives revenue certainty for companies. And thirdly, and the minister talked about it, it's a passion for inclusive and dynamic culture that promotes partnerships and creates synergies with Greek companies. A clear commitment to talent development, targeted efforts to retain and develop Greek talent, and support for attracting the best talent around the world to bring proven solutions. But going back to my first point, it's really a continuing focus and emphasis on creating a stable, transparent business environment. Greece has made strong progress in moving up in the Transparency Index, International Index, and continued improvement becomes the enabler for sustainable growth in development and retention of the top Greek talent.
Fantastic. Okay, so Riccardo.
Okay, can you
over to you?
Can you hear me now?
I hear you perfectly.
Fantastic.
Now. All good.
So big apologies to everyone. Sorry for this. I honestly don't know what happened. Thank you for inviting me to this panel. Well, in the late 50s, John Kennedy, in a speech in Indianapolis, actually stated the following: when written in Chinese, the word crisis is composed of two characters. One represents danger, and the other represents opportunity. Since then, scholars worldwide have been debating how the word is actually written in Mandarin, the word crisis, and yet I believe Kennedy's message holds true and remains inspiring to this day. As global inoculation is now a reality, I strongly believe we are reaching a turning point, making COVID-19 crisis an opportunity to reshape our world in a better and more sustainable way. For us, 2020 has been a challenging year like everyone. Still, we have remained fully committed to our mission to attract foreign direct investment. I'm very happy to hear John Charalambakis saying he's extremely interested in our asset portfolio. Steve also being actually involved in one of our projects at Theodoros. That's very good. So we're trying to support the national effort, the recovery of the economy through our program. And we're helping to implement structural reforms, bring change and modernization, to add value back to society. And I'll give you an example of how we've been doing this. So the Foundation for Economic and Industrial Research, EOVE as we call it in Greece, estimated that over the period 2011 to 2019, privatization boosted the country's GDP by around 1 billion a year on average. And the impact on employment was actually over 20,000 full-time jobs. In terms of program implementation, we made notable and tangible progress, launching several tenders, such as depot infrastructure, depot commercial, the underground natural gas storage facility in Kavala, the three ports of Alexandroupolis, Kavala and Goumenitsa, as John noted earlier, all projects that will materially increase the country's geostrategic weight in the energy and transit trade sectors. Most importantly, however, pickup by investors for these processes has been impressive, demonstrating that the pandemic has not subdued the investor interest. I think I'll say it again, we indeed witnessed a strong interest from US investment community. In the Alexandroupolis, Kavala and Goumenitsa ports, we have at least 2 different US consortiums in this process. In Hellenicon, our flagship project, as we all know, the Mohegan-led consortium won the casino license for the 30-year first integrated resort and casino in Greece. So for 2020, I see it as effectively setting the footing for 2021, as we expect a number of tenders to mature, whilst we'll be launching numerous others. Stellar assets such as the Attiki-Odos motorway, regional ports, the development of the old US naval base in the island of Crete in Hournes, the Markopoulo Athletic Center, already to launch, so in final maturity stages, and will be in the pipeline in the upcoming period, and relatively shortly, I would say. Effectively, we are fully determined to continue our mission with the same level of commitment, transparency, and approach to ensure winning propositions for both the state and investors. And I welcome, in particular, US investors to come to knock on our door and look at our assets.
Great. Thank you, Riccardo. So if I could just ask everybody to mute their phones, I'd appreciate it, or your devices. Thank you. So we have limited time left. It would be great if we could actually get around the panel one more time, but that would require everyone to hold their next round of answers to about 2 minutes. So we're going to try and do that. And Minister, really, I'll come back to you just in terms of the enormous success that your government has had in attracting investments. It'd be interesting to hear what is it, particularly in this infrastructure and privatization space going forward? What are the 1 or 2 things that you think will be critical to actually making this agenda happen?
You have to unmute yourself, Minister. You have to unmute yourself.
Yes, okay. So privatization is a very important part of our strategy, but in terms of the actual volume of investment, and this is a big difference compared to what happened in the previous part of the various programs that Greece has implemented. Now, the most important and exciting thing in terms of volume are the Rrf loans, because we are talking about a very important vehicle, which is huge in terms of volume. We're talking about an intent to pass to the private sector 13 billion euros of almost zero interest rate loans. This is huge, with the aim of mobilizing about 30 billion euros of private investment in the sectors that are eligible by the Rrf, and this is let's say a much bigger impact than the investment through privatization, which will continue to be important, and we will go through as fast as possible. But now it also has a big volume of private investment, and this can and to that you must add the private and the public and private partnerships, which are also going to be important in the implementation of the public investment. So we look into something like 5 to 7 more billion in terms of private and public partnerships within the next 5 years. Add all three, and you have a very ambitious plan.
Well, that sounds extraordinarily ambitious, and so good luck. Thanks for that. Riccardo, I'm back to you already, but very specifically, if you could tell us a little bit about how the sustainability agenda, the broad-based Green Deal, ESG issues factor into your plans to get privatizations done over the next year or so.
Yes, we have fully endorsed sustainable development practices at the fund, and are currently actually surveying assets under our management through an environmental, social, and governance tool that we have created together with the EBRD and the Global Sustain. So effectively, we've actually started operationalizing the tool with ports and real estate assets, during which some very interesting findings have come up, which I would like to share with you. The first is that circular economy principles are embedded in different capacities in the various companies under our portfolio. So for instance, from an operational aspect, think of energy reduction. From a strategic perspective, policies, for instance. The second point I'd like to make is that we see material consistency in the efforts our assets make to improve their environmental impact. So that is always very important that there's consistency. Thirdly, we have identified tangible steps in the efforts these assets make to actually improve their sustainability performance, as for instance, personal training to reduce water consumption. So that again is very important. Furthermore, the assets we have surveyed so far are not only allocating resources to the understanding of climate technologies and their impact in the short and long term, but also have a budget to implement these technologies. The ESG rating tool has enabled us to tangibly engage in sustainability conversations in an open forum with key stakeholders, accessing important know-how and exchanging information, as well as allowing us to support some of our portfolio companies in improving their sustainability performance, further enhancing the positive impact of privatizations. So, since we need to be short, what I think the current 2019 crisis has shown is that we need to build a different economy focused on creating sustainable and inclusive societies that are more resilient in the face of pandemics, climate change, and the many other global challenges we face. And the fund itself is just a humble servant to this cause, and we will do our utmost.
Great, thank you. So Penelope, one minute on your agenda in the renewable space and how that energy transition work is important to you.
Okay, this very important sector. It's fact that the revised National Energy and Climate Plan formally submitted by Greece to the European Commission in around February 2020 sets very ambitious investment targets for the next decade, both in relation to the de-lignitization of our energy balance and also for energy savings and the renewable energy sector generally. These national plans outlines an expected investment, I would say, rebirth in energy amounting to 44 billion for the period 2020 and 2030, especially in this very critical for national economy, domestic employment sectors of renewables, energy, electricity networks, and energy storage. Those sectors accounts 43% of all planned energy investments by 2030. Taking into account the aforementioned and the view of TERNA Energy, which, of course, following the vision of Mr. Peristeris in the mid-90s, is currently the undisputed market leader in Greece, is that investment in renewable energy and also in the related energy infrastructure, such as electricity networks, island interconnection, energy storage, can and also should be a key driver of recovery and development of the Greek economy in the post-COVID era, and TERNA Energy can play a major role in that front. TERNA Energy currently has an investment plan in the fields of clean energy, renewable and storage and waste management, circa 2 billion. With a target to reach an installed capacity by 2025, 2,800 megawatt. This investment plan includes not only wind farms in various parts of the country, but also investment in energy storage through pump storage hydro plants, as well as the integrated waste management, the energy utilization in Peloponnese. And in addition, there are ready for implementation in the Greek market. I'm sure you have heard that at least 1,000 megawatt of electricity storage project, I mean pumped hydro, renewable hybrid stations. Those projects are already licensed, pending and probably are pending the establishment of the long-term institutional and tarification framework.
Penelope, unfortunately, I'm sorry.
I'm saying my last word. TERNA Energy owns 80% share of this market through a number of mature, fully licensed pumped hydro storage projects. It's very important because contributes really to, for every €1 spending in this sector, return to economy 3 to 8 euro for every €1 invested in those sectors.
Thank you. Athanassios, John, and Steve, apologies that we didn't get back around with another question. Failure to keep going on my part, but really a great conversation. And Nicholas, thanks again for helping us put this panel together and have such a stellar group of panelists. And thank you all to those of you listening today.
Well, thank you to everybody. It's been great. This is a topic we can spend hours, and what I hope is that to have the opportunity to host each one of you separately or as a group to go really in depth The communication we started with international investors will continue. To date, it's, I wouldn't say the beginning, but it's one of those steps. So thank you, Jay. Thank you, Minister. Thank you to everybody. Great to have you with us.
Thank you.
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.